So last night I was very lucky to be able to attend an advanced screening of Marvel's Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. I have been bumping up this movie and really excited to see Marvel make its attempt on a martial arts based film. And I just love the character and his origin story from the comic book, so I was really excited to see this one coming through. But of course, Shang-Chi stars Simu Liu as the titular character, and it introduces the real Mandarin in this film, played by Tony Liu, whose character mainly goes by the name Wenwu in this film, but it also stars Awkwafina. And this does take place after Avengers Endgame, so we get to see a little bit how the snap affected Shang-Chi's world and his family and friends as well. And the runtime of this movie is about 2 hours and 15 minutes long. I'll say this right now without any spoilers. There are 2 after credit scenes, one in the mid and then one right at the end of the credits. So definitely stick around for those 2 because they are both pretty important for future events coming up in the MCU. Without further ado, let me get into my review for Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. So right off the bat, this movie puts us in the shoes of Wenwu. We all know him in the comics as the Mandarin, but he doesn't really go by that in this movie at all. He actually kind of rejects the name when he talks about the Mandarin and the Ten Rings from Iron Man 3. The Ten Rings army, of course, still is his, and that is the true name of it because he's been wielding the Ten Rings for 1,000+ years. And he's definitely used that for conquest, but it starts off this movie with him seeking Tai Lo, which is supposedly supposed to be another dimension that can be accessed from our worlds, that has a kung fu style that is basically given to the people who live there by the gods and these mythical creatures, and it's basically just a world full of sustenance and beauty and just things that are beyond our comprehension in our timeline, our world. So the Mandarin plans to seek these out, and in doing so, he finds a guardian of Tai Lo and ends up falling in love with her, having 2 kids with them, which ends up being Shang-Chi and Xiaolong. A little later in this film, of course, an event happens that breaks the family apart. Shang-Chi goes off and lives in America for 10 years, and so does Xiaolong eventually. She's able to escape her father's compound after her father returns to his ways of conquesting after putting the rings aside for almost 15 years. He becomes obsessed with trying to find his wife again and, of course, just find power, which he was doing for 1,000 years before he had his children. So a lot of this film is about Shang-Chi having to come to terms with leaving the new life he's made for himself in America and his friend Katie, played by Awkwafina, potentially behind, having to find his sister and revolt against his dad and the way that his organization operates, which is very similar to the comic book origin, which was very nice to see. But they definitely take a lot more of a family element into it that I thought was very compelling, and I thought that Wenwu was a very well put together villain, definitely one of the better ones we've seen in recent MCU history, where he's just very compelling. He has motivations that are just really real and you can understand them, and a man who's had conquest for 1,000 years can still have heart and a desire to be with his children, but still pursuing something that's so selfish and so misguided. I thought was just very well put together in this film, and yeah, they did just a very good job with this character, so I do applaud them for that. Of course, too, they do this a lot with Shang-Chi too, where he's really trying to forge his own destiny, and he has to cross a few lines that he might not have ever had to before. And they just do a really good job really showing the stakes of what it would mean for him to be with his dad and go through with his training and lose everything that he's built for himself in America, when in the grand scheme, of course, it's nothing compared to what his father's done, some of his friends in America have done, and just things like that. And it does make for Shang-Chi to be a very compelling hero, a very relatable hero, and someone who is very easy to root for throughout a lot of this film. And there's just a lot of family takes in this that are just very well put to the screen, very great chemistry between the characters, and it was really fun to watch all these characters interact with each other, bring their culture to life on the screen. And it was just, like I said, a very well put together film with great characters that were just really fun to watch each other interact with. So of course, with this being a martial arts film, it is awesome. There are some really great fights and great choreography in this movie. There's a lot of really great scenes. Of course, all the fights between Shang-Chi and Wenwu are fantastic. His sister is amazing in this film, who has some great action sequences. There's a lot of standout ones. Definitely the last battle scene in this movie is absolutely great. When there's just a lot that they're able to put in that scene. I don't want to get into it. It's too spoilery, but there is a lot going on in that fight scene, and it's all very, very well done. There's a scaffolding scene where Shang-Chi is fighting members from the Ten Rings on the side of a scaffolding that's put on a high rise. And yeah, they just do a lot of really, really cool and slick things with that. All the action's filmed really, really slickly. The choreography is great. There are some amazing move sets. Like I said, it's just a martial arts style that we haven't seen in the MCU before, and it is very, very well done. Reminiscent of old martial arts films, like I'm talking from the 60s, and of course they do pull a lot of inspiration from Jackie Chan style martial arts films, especially in terms of the fight scenes and how they filmed and just the moves that they're able to pull off. But very, very great, and it's easy to tell why Shang-Chi and all these characters are the best martial artists in Marvel from the end of this movie, because the fights are really, really good and really, really slick, whether it be with the powers that they use or just hand-to-hand combat. There is one thing that I will say about the filming of this, though, is that in a lot of the fight scenes, the camera is zoomed in way too much, way too much, where like the choreography, you can tell, is amazing. It's really, really great. But since it's so zoomed in, you can't really see the full moves in their glory. And if it was just panned out a decent amount more, there would have just been a lot more to see, a lot more to appreciate in terms of the stunt work that they're pulling off. And I just really wish that you can easily tell that a lot of these scenes are just way too zoomed in when you go see it, so be a little prepared for that. But of course, the CG that they have to use in this movie is very, very well done. It looks fantastic. They did a really good job with all of that, and the music in it absolutely bolsters every single scene. It's just full of authenticity and culture, and I absolutely loved watching that come to life on screen. And they're able to bring just a lot of culture to this movie that was really, really fascinating and fun to watch. And yeah, like I said, the music is just really good. It bolsters every scene, whether it has to be in terms of an emotional standpoint or has to be something to make you super excited because something epic and amazing is happening on the screen. There are a lot of characters in this too, which, like I said, are very, very fun to watch, but I found that when they did a really good job with the side hero characters in this film, they did not do a great job with the side villain characters in this film, where there is not really anything likable about either Death Dealer nor Razor Fist in this film. It was really tough to get into their characters just because of how little we got to know about them or how stereotypical the character was. So I found that they could have done a much better job with these two characters, giving them a bigger role or just had them be a lot more intimidating than they were, which Death Dealer was, but there just wasn't enough of him to really, like I said, just care for enough. And then Razorfish should have had a bigger role in the Ten Rings organization, or just seen him do a little bit more. There wasn't a lot to those characters, so it was a little tough to get into them. But of course, this movie, just like I said, was very, very well done. It was awesome to see a new character make his way into the MCU. With the Ten Rings, they definitely set it up to be a lot more in upcoming movies, and we're going to learn a ton more about them. But they're not, of course, they're the armbands in this movie instead of the rings like they were in the comics, and they definitely do not show them off in the same light as they were in the comics, where basically think of them as Affinity Stones, where each one grants the user a specific ability. They don't do this at all in the film, but there is something that kind of teases that there will be a lot more explanation. We're going to see the Ten Rings a lot more in the MCU after this, and maybe they'll be able to go into it a lot more from there. So I'm really hoping that they can really just unlock the true potential of the Ten Rings, but they are used really, really well in this film. There's some really cool, amazing scenes with them, especially in the fights, of course, because that's when they're going to be used the most. But they do some really cool effects that did make me like the armband style still. And it's just beautiful worlds that they're able to create either in our world or in Tableau, which was really, really cool to see. There's a lot of lore, a lot of history. I found that there could have been maybe a little more for newcomers to Shang-Chi and Tableau and all of this story. there's enough there that I don't think anyone should get confused, but there could have been a little more to just build up the world a little more. But again, this movie sets it up that we will be able to see these worlds a little bit more, have them become larger than what they just show off in this movie. So I don't think there's going to be anything left on the table in future movies. Like I said, there's a lot that they can do, and I really hope that they go into these worlds a lot more. Of course, with everything taken together, I really enjoyed Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. I thought it was a great movie, and I do highly recommend it to any MCU fan or any fan of martial arts films, because this is very, very well done, and you can tell there's a lot of care and a lot of passion from everyone involved in this movie, not just the cast, not just the directors, the crew. Everything was just really, really well done. So that is why, like I said, with everything taken together, I'm going to have to give Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings an 8.5 out of 10. It's just absolutely fantastic, and like I said, there are a few things that of course knock that score down a little bit, but there's, like with the rings and explanation of Ta Lo, there could be so much more to come in the future of the MCU, because they do really set up Shang-Chi to become a very big character, and I know he's going to be, and I think a lot of people are going to have a very like a new character that they're able to get into. There's a lot of them in this film that are just awesome and really, really fun to watch. So again, I highly recommend Shang-Chi, and if you've seen it, please let me know what you thought about it in the comments down below. And if you like this video, you can of course check out all my movie reviews and everything else that I do on this channel through my playlist down below, and I'll link some up top here. If you like what you see on the channel, of course subscribe and turn the little ringer on if you want to know when I upload new videos. In my description, there's a link to my Twitch if you want to check out everything I do video game and live stream wise, and there's also a link in the description to the Media Mountain, which is my Discord, where we talk about movies, comics, video games, TV shows, basically everything that's awesome in this world. So you can definitely join that amazing community and help make it even more amazing than it is already. But yes, definitely go check out Shang-Chi. It hits theaters tomorrow, Friday, September the 3rd, and it'll also be available on Disney Plus 45 days after the theatrical release. So if you're not able to make it to the theaters, you'll be able to watch it then with a Disney Plus subscription. But awesome, guys.